Vanakkam. I'm extremely sorry that due to various circumstances, including problems with health, I'm unable to attend this extremely important meeting. But I assure you, at the next parliamentary meeting, if I'm still alive, I surely will attend. I would like to focus on several problems which I've represented had I been able to come and be with you. Firstly, I think we should focus on non-controversial problems. I refer to the admission of Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch and International Crisis Group, who have been denied access for years into Sri Lanka. You see, what we are looking at in the past and present and probably in the future is the violation of human rights. And here there are internationally accepted human rights organizations. One of them, Amnesty International, a Nobel Prize winner. Now, in this book, which I have just released, Sri Lanka, Sexual Violence of Tamils by the Armed Forces, I have referred to the continuing exclusion of Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch and International Crisis Group many times. And it is something that no reasonable country will be able to obstruct. And if countries like Sri Lanka will block it, then their credibility will be at stake. So may I urge you to put this as priority number one, the immediate admission of Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch and International Crisis Group. Secondly, let me deal with this regime change, where the murderous Rajapaksas were replaced by Rajapaksa's health minister and in the closing stages of the war, the acting defense minister. It was during that time that the worst atrocities were committed. So if Rajapaksas are guilty of crimes against humanity, so is Sirisena. You've got to remember that when you are talking in terms of implementation of the human rights resolution and many others like that. You see, the north and the east of Sri Lanka is not under the Sri Lankan government, although you may think it is. It is under the Sri Lankan military and the Sri Lankan police, 99 and 95% Sinhalese respectively. So it is a police state, it's a military state where the people who run the place, which is the army, treat the area as captured, conquered territory and the people who live in it as the spoils of war. Now, President Sirisena, when he got into power, he said a lot of things that were wrong about the Rajapaksa regime. For sure, he was right. But he was part of that regime and a part of the senior members of that regime. All of that is spelled out, including verbatim what he said in my book. Now, where the Sri Lankan Tamils in the north and the east are concerned, the change in the regime is just a name change from Rajapaksa to Sirisena. You see, the Tamils are not interested in whether there is democracy in Colombo or not. Their main problem is fear. And it's justifiable fear. Fear of the armed forces. And as long as the armed forces remain in the north and the east, then the human rights violations will go on. And that is why, if the army is to remain in the north and the east, which it is, Sirisena says that, Wickramasinghe says that, and war criminal Sarath Fonseca says that. There will be no reduction in the armed forces. If there is no reduction in the armed forces, then it is mandatory that human rights organizations, internationally credible human rights organizations, are allowed into the country. You see, I've been at this game from the dawn of independence, and I've seen a succession of Sinhala so-called leaders, several from my family, the Bandaranayakas, who have the Mahavamsa mindset. I don't need to explain to you what the Mahavamsa mindset is. The Mahavamsa is a chronicle written by a Buddhist monk for the pious joy of the serene. Buddhists such as my mother. He didn't write that as a textbook of medicine, of history. But the Sinhalese believe it is a textbook of history. Now they can believe what they like, but if Sri Lanka is to be a Sinhala Buddhist country based on the Mahavamsa mindset, then there is no alternative to the establishment of a separate Tamil state, Tamil. Well, what do you do with the 2 million Tamils in the north and the east? They are not Sinhalese and they are not Buddhists. But Sri Lanka is a Sinhala Buddhist country. So what do you do with these Tamils who are Tamil and either Hindu or Christian? There are only 4 things you can do with them. Number 1, you can drive them out of the country, such as 1.1 million people have already been driven out. What do you do with the rest? You can make them disappear. Sri Lanka has the second highest rate of disappearances, involuntary disappearances in the world. Thirdly, you can make them non-people. People who have got no employment, whose jobs have been taken away, who cannot do any agriculture or fishing, the 2 big industries in the north and the east. Their lands have been taken away and they've been taken from the coast where the sea is and relocated inland. You can't fish inland. You have to get access to the sea. Some 8,000 acres of some of the best agricultural lands in the Tamil areas has been taken over by the armed forces. Sirisena said that he will get the land back to their rightful owners. He didn't say Tamil, but there's no other people who have lost land there. And he then, of the 8,000 acres, was able to obtain only some 600 acres. Now, we are talking about the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, the Minister of Defense and the Executive President, all rolled into one, President Sirisena. If he expects us to believe that he, with the powers that he has not been able to order the army to hand back the lands to their rightful owners, the Tamil people, and he expects us to believe it, he must think that we are fools. We are not all of us. The 4th thing we can do is to kill them. That is genocide. You see, in genocide, and this is according to the Genocide Convention, not according to me, it is the intention to eliminate or destroy in whole or in part a national, ethnic, religious, cultural or linguistic people. And the part is the part that lives in the north and the east. So I can't really see the problem of calling what is happening in Sri Lanka genocide. It is not only physical genocide, but it is economic genocide, cultural genocide, bombing of the public, setting fire to the public library in Jaffna, linguistic genocide, where the Tamil language is being replaced by a Sinhalese language, and religious genocide, where Hindu and Christian churches and temples are being replaced by Buddhist shrines. I will show you a book. Try and get a copy of it. I'm not suggesting that I send you one because I don't have any to send. It's written by one of your people, Dr. Winston Panchacharan, one of the finest books I have ever seen on the subject. It's called Genocide in Sri Lanka. And Panch, as he is popularly called, he's unwell actually, right at the moment, traces the genocide in a number of countries and then gets into genocide in Sri Lanka. And he asks this outstanding question. If this is not genocide, then what is it? Well, the answer is, it is genocide. Is a division of the country the answer to the problems in Sri Lanka? I don't know. Nor do you, unless you live in the Tamil North and the East. And what I'm trying to get at is that if we want to know whether a division of the country or similar is what is needed, then we got to ask the people who are involved, that is the people in the North and the East. In other words, a referendum. Now, I think it was in the last transnational government meeting that Professor Manivaran from India gave an outstanding dissertation on the problems of a referendum. And a badly conducted referendum is probably worse than no referendum at all. You cannot have a referendum with a murderous singular armed forces running around the place. Even Justice Navanitha Pillai, when she went to the North and the East, the army visited the people she spoke with or she was going to speak with and said, what did you tell the lady? And we are expecting people like that to vote in a referendum. It won't happen. So what we got to do is to do a proper referendum, as we did in East Timor, where the East Timorese asked a simple question. Do you want to remain under Indonesia or do you want a separate country? And there was an overwhelming yes to a separate country. And that was done with the UN, by the UN, and the UN forces replacing the Indonesian forces. The 1977 election, general election, was in fact a sort of a referendum where the TULF, the Tamil United Liberation Front, asked a series of questions, asked the people in the North and the East a series of questions. Do you want, the summary was, do you want us to pursue a separate Tamil state Tamilism? Because if you do, we need a mandate. And they had an overwhelming mandate. And what I'm saying is that the same thing can be done today. Well, if the Sri Lankan government says that the Tamils have been liberated and there are now only happy, smiling Tamil faces in the North and the East, can we check that out by a referendum? The sixth constitutional amendment must be withdrawn. That is, the amendment that says that to even mention the word division of Sri Lanka is a violation of the sixth amendment to the Constitution, and you can go to jail. I think that even people as well known as Justice Vigneswaran, the head of the Northern Provincial Council, has refrained from mentioning the word division because it is a violation of the sixth constitutional amendment. Singalization, what is that? That is replacing the Tamil people in the North and the East by Sinhalese relocated from the South in bulk. This is exactly what happened in Ampare when I was growing up. Ampare was a Tamil area, 99% were Tamils. D.S. Nayaka, the supposed father of the nation, translocated 250,000 Sinhalese from the Sinhalese South even before he became a Prime Minister, as Minister of Agriculture in the British regime. And Ampare has now become a Sinhalese area. It's about half Sinhalese, a third Sinhalese, a third Muslim, and a third Tamil. So from 99.9% Tamil, we've dropped to about 30%. That is exactly what is going on in the Tamil North and the East, where the Tamil people are being replaced by the Sinhalese people, and that's happening at an alarming rate. Hence the urgency for action, because if we allow this to drag on, we are not going to have a Tamil homeland in the North and the East. It's all going to be Sinhalese. What about the expatriate Tamil community? 1.1 million of them. Are they doing anything? Well, not much. You see, the expatriate Tamil community are depressed and apathetic. They have confused the liberation tigers of Tamil Eelam with the cause of the problem, which is the inability of the Tamils to live with equality, dignity and safety, and not to live at all in the country of their birth. The defeat of the Tamil tigers has nothing to do with the basic underlying problem. The liberation tigers of Tamil Eelam was the military arm of the Tamil people, just as the Sinhalese army is the military arm of the Sinhalese people. You can crush the LTTE, they're no big deal, but the problem does not go away. 6 years after the crushing of the Tamil tigers, the violation of human rights in the Tamil areas has actually increased. And evidence for that comes from an outstanding book published by Yasmin Suka, An Unfinished War, Torture and Sexual Violence in Sri Lanka, 2009 to 2014. A very important publication. And I urge you to get a copy from the net. And having documented 40 cases of people who have returned to Sri Lanka and got raped and returned back to England and given evidence to her, she said, I will quote exactly what she says in her recommendations. It says, we call upon the UN Security Council to refer this report, that's her report, which indicates reasonable grounds to believe that crimes against humanity are occurring in Sri Lanka, to the prosecutor of the International Criminal Court for further action against those who bear the greatest responsibility. And I'll tell you who they are in a minute. Alternatively, we urge the ICC prosecutor to explore the cases of individuals who bear the greatest responsibility and who hold a nationality of a state party to the Rome Statute. You see, the Rome Statute is what governs the International Criminal Court. And if you haven't signed the Rome Statute, the International Criminal Court can't act. Or you can completely ignore the International Criminal Court. Now, there are two people who have citizenship of a country that has signed the Rome Statute, and the United States, and that is Gotabaya Rajapaksa and Sarath Fonseca. So for a start, let us start by charging those two, at least Gotabaya Rajapaksa, on crimes against humanity. And my book, The Sexual Violence of Tamils, has an entire chapter on charging Gotabaya Rajapaksa. Right there in New York, Professor Ryan Goodman from the School of Law, New York School of Law, has written a paper. He says, Gotabaya Rajapaksa is one of our people. It's time we held him responsible. So get people like Professor Ryan Goodman to tell us what should be done to file action so that either Gotabaya Rajapaksa, I think there's even provision to have him extradited from Sri Lanka to face criminal charges if action is filed in the United States. You see, if the expatriate Tamil community are sort of losing the plot or become apathetic, they have to be woken up. I have been accused of speaking to the expatriate Tamil community, saying you are preaching to the converted. Unfortunately, you have to preach to the converted to see that they remain converted. And at the moment, that is not happening, and the converted are becoming either unconverted or just silent. We've got to wake them up. Because, as I said, they are the most powerful force that the Sri Lankan Tamils in the Tamil North and East have. We've got to set up Tamil information centres, such as the Tamil Information Centre in London in the mid-1980s, run by that extraordinary Tamil Kandaya Kandasamy. I remember visiting the TIC. I never met Kandasamy. I went, he asked me, who are you? I introduced myself, and I said, and who are you? He said, I'm Kandasamy. He said, what brings you here? And I literally gave him a shopping list and said, I got 6 days in London, I want the following things done. I want to meet Dame Judith Hart, Lord Avebury. I want certain books that I cannot get in Australia. And Kandasamy simply not only said, call 2 of the people who are working in the Tamil Information Centre, who are still around actually. I met one only quite recently, and said, take Dr. Senrathan and give him whatever he wants. He was a visionary. He was a very fine man who did more to apprise the world in general, London in particular, of the problems facing the Tamil people. We need centres like that, at least in the major countries where there are large numbers of Tamils. I refer to Canada, France, other European countries, and India. You got to raise the profile of the transnational government of Tamil, and that we are not doing. See, there are certain countries, Australia being one, where the transnational government is barely heard of. And I gather that even in England, the profile of the transnational government is low. We've got to raise that. You see, we are not trying to swallow up the Global Tamil Forum and the British Tamil Forum and the Australian Tamil Congress, etc. They can do what they like, but we got to have a lead role that we play if we are going to have any success in addressing the problems faced by the Tamil people, which I hope is the object of the TGTE. The question of the Tamil National Alliance, TNA, has got to be addressed. These are the representatives of the Tamil people. Are they representing the Tamil people? I don't think so. Not today. You see, we've had a leadership crisis among the Tamils. For years, we had only one leader, an outstanding one at that, S.J.V. Shivalangam. When he died, there was no one. And then, out of the blue came Archbishop Rayapu Joseph, who for many a year was the sole representative of the leadership of the Tamil people, even though he was not in Parliament. Unfortunately, he's had a devastating stroke, and his life on this planet may be limited. Fortunately, there has been another who has come forward, and he is Justice Vigneswaran, the head of the Northern Provincial Council. He lost his way a bit initially because he's not a politician, he got no political experience. And after dilly-dallying a bit, he had now settled down to become a vociferous advocate of the rights of the Tamil people. And I think he is the leader. Whether he is in Parliament or not, I don't think matters a great deal. But in my opinion, he is the indisputed leader of the Tamil people today. He's being challenged by Mr. Sumantharan, an elected, firstly a nominated member. Incidentally, I gather he was nominated by, of all people, Gotabaya Rajapaksa. I don't know that. You'll have to check that. But now he has been elected. as a member of parliament for Jaffna. He is at loggerheads with Vigneswaran. And actually he has come out and said that when Vigneswaran said that this was genocide, he was foolish. He has attacked Vigneswaran and has now, I gather, asked for the expulsion of Vigneswaran from the TNA. See, if you have got people like Sumantaran, you've got to ask them, in whose pay are you? Who are you looking after? The Sri Lankan government or the Tamil people? Well, he's elected to look after not the Sri Lankan government, but the Tamil people. Is he doing that? I doubt it. Have I met the man? Yes, I have. And what do I think of him? I was, to put it mildly, unimpressed. And the more I see of him, the less impressed I am. What about the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights? One of the greatest tragedies that befell the Tamil people is the end of the regime of Navanithan Pillai. I think the period goes on for 4 years. She finished her 4 years and was extended for another 2 years. And when that ended, I thought to myself, the Tamil people are in trouble. Because Navanithan Pillai is probably one of the finest people that the United Nations has ever had. His replacement, Prince Zaid Al Hussein, diplomat. Well, he is a diplomat, full stop. He is not a match. He is not in the same league as Navanithan Pillai. After much dilly-dallying, he finally produced a report. It's a powerful report, I'll give him that. But it doesn't tell you what happens if that report goes to Sri Lanka, which it already has, and is tossed into the dustbin. Or worse still, the Sri Lankan government says, oh yes, we will implement everything that you have asked us to, and then does nothing. There are no penalties. If there are no penalties, you might as well scrap the whole thing, because Sri Lanka knows full well that Mr. Zaid or the UN, they can do nothing. The Sinhalese area, the area that I come from, that got me targeted. There are Sinhalese. I'm not the only one, only Sinhalese, although I've been told that you're about the only one who campaigns for the Tamil people. That's not true. That's simply not true. Dr. Vikramabahu Karunaratne done an outstanding job. Vijay Das and Sritunga Jayasuriya. They're all Sinhalese and they all contested for the presidency. The fact that they got 0.001% is irrelevant. But they are Sinhalese who are committed for justice to the Tamil people. We've got to support them and express our appreciation. I've actually wanted this book, I'm referring to for the third time, translated not into Tamil, because the Tamil know all this, into Sinhalese, so that my people can know what is going on in the Tamil areas. I think that they will be shocked. What can we do? Sri Lanka has got to be isolated, as was apartheid South Africa. This canard that the ethnic problem in Sri Lanka is an internal affair of Sri Lanka is nonsense. Apartheid was an internal affair of South Africa. But the world decided to act because the apartheid system was wrong. Similarly, in Sri Lanka, what has happened to the Tamil people from the day of independence and even before that? Every single government, Sinhalese government that has come in, enacted legislation which is anti-Tamil, based on the Mahavamsa mindset. So we isolate Sri Lanka until they come up with a reasonably acceptable solution to enable the Tamil people to live with equality, dignity, and now to live at all in the country of their birth. I have set out all this in a number of DVDs. I think it's about 11 or 12. I'll just refer to the last one, or one but the last one, Sri Lanka Genocide, Crimes Against. There's another DVD I recorded, it's under Green Left, because it was for the Greens in Western Australia, called Deterioration of Human Rights in Sri Lanka, an Appeal for Action. That was in Perth in September 2012. That gives the agenda of the Sri Lankan government. It's quite an important DVD, although I had to rush it because there was not enough time to present it in detail. We've got to encourage people like, or even retain people like Yasmin Suka to take this matter forward. And she's the one who suggested that this be sent to the UN Security Council, her book. Well, we'll pay her and we'll contract her to do just that, to tell us how it can be taken to the UN Security Council or to the international prosecutor. You've got to retain people like Navanithan Pillai. A couple of weeks ago, I was going to a meeting in Durban, which was organized by the Truth and Justice Commission or something similar to that in Durban, which was addressed by Navanithan Pillai. The opening address was given by her. So she is there and she can be contracted or asked to help us to take this to the next stage. We've got to support people like Professor Francis Boyle, who has campaigned for years for the Tamil people. He's actually written a book on the genocide of the Tamil people. If there was a non-Tamil who is almost a Tamil, it must be Professor Boyle, one of the finest people that I have met and one of the most committed. We've got to boycott Sri Lanka. The campaign Say No to Sri Lanka must be implemented. We won't go to Sri Lanka, we won't buy things from Sri Lanka, we won't export things to Sri Lanka, we will block people from going there, and we will tell them that if you want beaches and sunshine, there are scores of places in Bali and Australia and many other countries where there is sea and surf. Sri Lanka, the blood-stained beaches of Sri Lanka don't need to be visited. So the boycott of Sri Lanka is critically important. You know, when I was in South Africa some couple of years ago, I spoke to some of the ANC leaders and I said, now what are the things that made the apartheid regime one of the most powerful regimes in the world? Simply pack up. Here's a country literally full of gems and all other. It's not a broke country. These are only two things worked. Not your resolutions at the UN and all that stuff. One, the trade boycott, and two, the boycott on cricket. If not for those two, apartheid regime would be still in operation. Now, we are talking not of a prosperous country like South Africa. We are talking about a broke country, Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka is flat broke. And were it not for the IMF and the loans from China, etc., we would have been bankrupt. I gather that the total gross national product of Sri Lanka is less than what we have to pay out in loans and loan repayments. So the country is broke, and if we say no to Sri Lanka and implement an economic boycott, Mr. Rajapaksa, Mr. Sirisena and Wickremesinghe will collapse. We've got to marshal the plantation Tamils. That is the Achilles heel of Sri Lanka. It is one of the biggest mistakes that the Tamils, militant Tamils, made of not including the plantation Tamils. If the plantation Tamils were to down their tools today, Sri Lanka will collapse within a week. Have we done that? No, we haven't. We look down. Even today, we look down on the plantation Tamils. We used to call them coolies. Thank God that word has disappeared. And finally, I think I've spoken long enough. Let me emphasize that time is running out for the Tamils in the north and the east. It is what I call slow motion genocide. And that is happening before our very eyes. And the world is looking on while genocide of the Tamil people is occurring. Nandri.